The abyss writhed, as it always did, a churning chaos of thoughtless malice and boundless hunger. But deep in its 600th layer, where the light of reason had long since curdled into madness, Baphomet labored with a dreadful purpose. The endless maze grew. Like a beast fashioning its own lair, Baphomet gouged new tunnels into the landscape of despair, his axe cleaving stone with a builder's precision and a murderer's delight. Smooth, worked passages emerged from the chaos, their craftsmanship unsettlingly perfect. 10 feet wide, uniformly tall, every inch exuding a silent pressure that gnawed at the sanity of those who entered. The air itself seemed to hum with tension, and the ceilings of these new corridors bore no light, only a deadening presence, a weight of unknowable judgment. Blood would come soon, he knew. The new stone cried out for it. He stalked forward through a corridor freshly etched with abyssal runes, speaking in low tones to his servants, hulking minotaurs covered in ritual scars, and whispering bulazars that flitted through the shadows like mold in the wind. He placed them as a conductor arranges his orchestra, some behind false walls, some fused into the stone itself, others above in hollowed vents where the sounds of claws on stone echoed endlessly. They knew their roles. They would play their parts in the terror to come. And then there were the traps, corridors that twisted gravity into nonsense, where victims would fall sideways and never stop. Rooms flooded with abyssal fire that burned not just flesh, but identity. Passages that rearranged themselves based on the fears of those who walked them. One moment, it was a hallway, then a shrine of bones to some forgotten god, and then again, a stairwell that led only deeper, deeper. Still, Baphomet's hunger was not only for death, it was for creation. He turned away from his maze and descended the Tower of Science, a brutal spire that stabbed the very sky of the abyss, its stones slick with ichor and theory. 16 levels of obsession awaited him. Floor 3, pain response studies in Cambion hybrids. Floor 7, soundproof vivisection chambers. Failures are incinerated, successes are replicated. Floor 12, soul-shearing experiments through forced memory implantation. Floor 15, gravity reversal, surgery on wingless demons. He moved through them with a calm intensity, massive hoofbeats echoing like war drums in the tight stone halls. Here, science was not a pursuit of knowledge. It was an altar to cruelty, a forge for new nightmares. Already, he had crafted 2 new demonic breeds in the last cycle, and a third clawed at the walls of its birthing vat. He smiled with his jagged maw. This one would be perfect for the center of the new edition. Something beautiful, something impossible. And yet, as he walked the latest hall of the endless maze, the ground still steaming from the installation of a pressure plate lined with infernal glyphs, Baphomet paused. His nostrils flared. His gaze swept across the flawless geometry. His ears caught the distant breathing of some soul already lost within. He nodded. Not enough, he whispered. Then he raised his axe and began carving again. Tasha opens a darkened tome, a golden frame embroidering the outside surface, with a demonic hand almost portraying resistance to the tome's secrets being opened. Ugh, Baphomet. Honestly, you'd think the Lord of the Endless Maze would be a little more subtle. But no, he's all horns, blood, and brute force symbolism. I've met minotaurs more nuanced than him. And believe me, I've met a lot of minotaurs. One of them tried to gift me a fingerbone flute made from his father. Charming, but I left it in a river. Still, credit where it's due. Baphomet knows how to make a first impression. You step into his lair, and it's all walls closing in, air pressing down. The unmistakable scent of blood and ego. He's like a bad boyfriend with a PhD in architecture and a body count. They say he started as a mortal. Some wild theory about him being a man who thought he was a beast, or maybe a beast who thought he was a man. Honestly, the distinction's academic, and I've never cared for biology. What is interesting is that he dared to treat the gods like livestock, branded them, studied them, herded them in his head like cattle. And the gods, in their usual overdramatic flair, cursed him and flung him into the abyss. And wouldn't you know it, he thrived. The maze he built there is, well, a little on the nose, but you can't deny the craftsmanship. Corridors that whisper to you in languages you used to know. Gravity that forgets which way is up. And everywhere, those little touches. Blood patterns that rearrange when you blink. Shrines to forgotten thoughts. Bone ornaments that hum in Enochian when you're alone. It's all very, look at me. I'm so tortured and clever. The Minotaurs adore him, of course. They worship him like a father who never learned their names. He gives them a place, a purpose, and lots of victims to gore. It's sweet, in a vaguely fascist way. But here's the thing you must remember, darling. Baphomet doesn't kill people. Not right away. He loses them. Like trinkets in the folds of a very large, very murderous robe. People wander into his maze and forget who they were. Days become years. Friends become enemies. By the time anything eats you, you'll have already starved of confusion. I did visit once, briefly. I wore a cloak stitched from the skin of a demon prince who got too fresh with me and carried a key made of forged paradoxes. He saw me, of course. How could he not? He stared. I winked. It was awkward. I got out. But don't be too impressed. I've walked out of worse places. One time, I left a date with a bailer halfway through dessert, and I still don't know how the waiter survived. So yes, Baphomet is terrifying, in the way a tornado made of bone saws is terrifying. But fascinating, a little. Stylish, not remotely. Dangerous, obviously. And if you're thinking of visiting the maze for study, heroism, or some misguided act of martyrdom, don't. Unless you've got a mirror that bites back and a will stronger than steel silk, you're not clever enough to survive him, or his traps, or his new pet projects. He's been experimenting, you know. Which reminds me, I should really go check my vault. One of my mirrors twitched when I mentioned him. Either he's watching me again, or Grazist is being petty. Either way, I look fabulous. Tasha, mistress of the inconvenient truth from Demonomicon, my exes and other disasters. Known as the Horned King, Baphomet divides the creatures of the world into two groups. Those who acknowledge his power are his servants, and he endows them with savagery and a hunter's cunning. The rest are prey, creatures to be hunted and slaughtered. His aim is to transform the cosmos into his personal hunting ground. Baphomet is a savage entity, but he tempers his ferocity with shrewdness. He loves the hunt and the sense of impending doom that comes over prey that can't escape his pursuit. His fondness for labyrinths, instilled in the minotaurs he created, reflects this aspect of his personality. He studies every detail of the mazes he creates, and exults in the dread that overcome those who become lost in them. He tracks them at his leisure, striking only after the maze's contorted corridors have exhausted the energy and the hope of his victims. This demon lord is a hulking, man-like brute, standing at 20 feet tall. His muscular frame is covered in thick, matted black hair, and a head of a fiendish build, with his great horns stained in the lifeblood of countless victims. Cloven hooves and a bovine tail complete his bestial appearance. The cult of Baphomet attracts those who see themselves as superior to everyone else, to the extent that they consider other people little more than animals. His teachings reinforce these beliefs, appealing to the ego and justifying narcissism. Bigots are also drawn to his doctrine of individual superiority. Cultists of Baphomet include nobles who use their vassals as playthings, assassins who practice their murderous art for the sheer love of hunting intelligent creatures, and paranoid humans who combine a hatred of outsiders with bloodthirstiness. Typically, a cult builds a maze beneath a castle, a guild hall, or some other place it controls. The cultists drug their victims, strip them of their weapons and armor, and place them in the labyrinth before they wake up disoriented. Then, the cultists stalk their prey in the maze. They howl as they chase their quarry, striking fear into their victims' hearts before descending for the kill. If the hunt claims a particularly powerful creature, Baphomet might bestow boons on the cultists as a reward. Baphomet revels in melee combat, yet he is not blindly confident in his prowess. He begins combat by casting the maze spell, trapping the largest or most powerful-looking foe in a demi-plane of his choosing. He is fond of combat in a hand-to-hand format, and in this, he excels. He is served by fiendish and half-fiend minotaurs, as well as a growing number of Bulazau and Goristro demons. Humanoid cultists are additionally increasing, taking to his worship in poor rural areas. Desperate commoners sometimes turn to beast cults organized by evil rangers who have a veneration towards revenge towards political structures. The abyssal horned god also has a complex relationship with Pale Knight. The two demon lords share control over the same abyssal layer, although Pale Knight's influence doesn't truly extend beyond the vast plateau on which her castle is located. The two demons have never joined forces to accomplish a goal, but any attempt to lay siege to one of their holdings in the endless maze might result in the other coming to his or her aid. Baphomet regards several other demon lords with particular hatred, especially Grazist, who imprisoned him, and Yinohu, with whom Baphomet has been at war with for eons. His driving goal is the destruction of this hated foe. Neither demon lord remembers the genesis of this mutual hatred, but most of the horned demon's actions on the material plane are tied in some way to his war efforts against the demon prince of Knolls. This ranges from the harvesting of fresh souls to fuel his abyssal holdings, to the acquisition of potent magic items to be transported into the hands of his most powerful agents and generals. The bellowing prince of beasts dwells at the center of his infinite maze of twisting corridors. Its endless passages connect to several other labyrinths elsewhere on the plane, such as the puzzling hedge of Shendelavri or the Valley of the Crypt Things on Thanatos. Such connections bring legions of often unwilling visitors to the endless maze, where they soon become hopelessly lost, almost welcoming the slobbering beasts dispatched by Baphomet to prowl the maze in search of intruders. Numerous Minotaur tribes inhabit the maze, usually led by half-fiend Minotaurs or rogue Bulazors that have escaped the Blood War. These creatures revere Baphomet as a patron deity, and such is their devotion that some eventually escape the maze to preach the gospel of the Prince of Beasts to the Minotaurs of the material plane. In addition to the ram-headed Bulazau, several domestic demon breeds created in Baphomet's Tower of Science haunt the lair, including brutal horned ogres known as Gowers, and the demon lord's most exported creations, the Goristros. Numerous wild Goristros hungrily wander the forlorn hallways of the endless maze, keeping the larger corridors and galleries free from intruders, and often dumbly crushing allied servants of Baphomet for good measure. The demon lord tolerates raiding parties of Glabrazos, who occasionally abduct these creatures to lash them into the service of a distant demon lord. For the Horned King knows that the Goristro's stature and battle prowess carry his legend to all corners of the abyss. Baphomet's wrathful rivalries with other demon lords, particularly Yinogu and Grazist, fuel most of the armed conflict in the endless maze, with vast hordes of demons and mortal warriors flooding the tunnels in an attempt to destroy the Prince of Beasts in his lair. Few invaders manage to negotiate the labyrinth well enough to pose a serious threat to the demon lord. But those who do must first defeat his creations before they can get a chance at the master himself. Farther from the region, often patrolled by Baphomet himself, the maze falls into crumbling disrepair and ultimately takes on the characteristic of unworked natural passages. Near portals to other layers, the maze sometimes takes on architectural or artistic trappings reminiscent of the layer on the other side of the gate. No natural illumination graces the endless maze, although ever-burning torches keep important passageways illuminated so that his victims can see the twisted faces of their pursuers. And so, the endless maze grows, its newest arteries dug from madness and ambition, sealed in stone and silence. Baphomet walks the fresh-cut corridors like a sculptor inspecting his latest masterwork, not with pride, but with hunger. Pride implies satisfaction, and Baphomet is never truly satisfied. The maze is his reflection, his dogma carved in marble for all to see. Each hallway is a syllable in a brutal sermon, each trap a test of faith in the god of horns and blood. The walls remember every footstep, the floors catalogue every failure. The ceilings bear witness to all who die looking for a way out. And when he wearies of stone and steel, he descends into his tower of science, a monument to his grotesque curiosity. On each floor, he refines the art of creation, not to build better life, but to build life that obeys, that breaks, that hunts. His new creations are manufactured with hatred as mortar and pain as fuel. They will be unleashed into the maze soon enough. Yet for all its terror and torment, not everyone is so easily impressed. Enter Tasha, archmage, manipulator, self-declared fashion icon, and somehow always 2 steps ahead of the plot. To her, Baphomet is a beast with delusions of philosophy, an angry ox with a slide rule. His maze, intricate, his minions, predictable, his aesthetic, Stone Age, but trying. She's seen the maze, walked it, mocked it, survived it. Of course, her notes in the Demonomicon drip with disdain, laced with backhanded compliments and subtle reminders that she got out without even smudging her boots. To Tasha, Baphomet is dangerous, yes, but also desperate. A creature cursed by gods, clinging to a labyrinth because he has nothing else left to control. And yet, she also knows better than to laugh, because underneath the ego and bloodshed, beneath the geometry and gore, there is something terrifyingly real. A willpower so vast, so relentless, it can warp the very layers of the abyss into a machine for destroying identity. The maze is a philosophy of annihilation, a place that forgets you before you realize you've forgotten yourself. In the end, perhaps both perspectives hold truth. To Baphomet, the maze is the truth of existence, savage, ordered, inescapable. To Tasha, it's another mad god scribbling in the dark, desperate to be seen. But for those who step into the maze, for the bold, the foolish, the doomed, there are no perspectives, only choices that lead in circles and screams that fade into stone. And somewhere deep within, past the fire traps and shifting gravity, past the breeding pits and whispering walls, a single hoofstep echoes, deliberate, patient, closer. The maze is ready. Are you?